Real life drama that could be on Netflix. These are your stories. First one wants to be left anonymous. Should I tell my cousin her husband has a pregnant mistress? Yeah. I have a cousin, Maya, who everyone knows baby trapped her rich boyfriend 6 weeks into dating. His family still doesn't like her, though they're now married with 2 kids. Since getting with Keith and becoming a kept stay-at-home mom, Maya looks down on the rest of us. Another cousin of ours, whose husband moved to another country with his mistress, leaving with their 4 kids, is Maya's favorite target, as she loves to point out that my cousin chose the wrong one. 12 years ago, I was still living at home in my 3rd year of double majoring in college, and I went to the hospital to visit Maya after she had her 2nd child. While there, Maya actually said to me, "I gave 2 people life. What have you done with yours?" Maya, who's the same age as me, never graduated high school, by the way, and I now have 2 degrees. One is a master's. 5 years ago, one of her friends, Sophie, saw Maya's husband Keith at a nightclub making out with another woman. Keith saw Sophie and ran to the bathroom to call Maya, telling her that he had brought his friends to a club to cheer him up after he got fired and ran into a drunk Sophie who was all over him, but he rejected her advances. What a sneaky little prick. The next day, when Sophie told her that she saw Keith with another woman, Maya tore into her, accusing Sophie of being jealous and wanting Keith for herself. I'm still friends with Sophie and heard her side, which was confirmed by others, before Maya told the family the version Keith gave her. Her friendship with Sophie ended. Keith plays football, soccer, and the next week at an away game when Maya couldn't attend, another friend, Erica, who was with Sophie at the club that night, saw Keith with the same woman from the club outside the locker room and sent pics of them making out to Maya. Now she has no choice but to believe them.
You would think.
After the game, she called Maya about the pics she sent, and Maya laid into her, oh, here we go, saying Keith explained the pics and Erica should just stop meddling in her life. Well, forget it then. Don't tell her. I give up. I take that all back. She's not going to listen to it anyway. Let her keep getting cheated on. It's fine. That friendship also ended. So for at least 5 years, it's been an open secret, and everyone, including the extended family, knows about Keith and his mistress. But nobody's told Maya. Well, they've tried. Family friend told me at an event that Keith walked right up to her while holding hands with his mistress and hugged her hello. So clearly, he's not even worried about anyone talking. Last week, I saw Keith at a football match with his mistress, who looked to be at least 6 months pregnant. I snapped pics of them holding hands and kissing, but Maya's seen pics before and still didn't believe them. Plus, there's no way the pics prove that she's pregnant from Keith. The relatives I told said to keep quiet since I know how Maya is. I'm no better for keeping secrets, but Keith being brazen enough to start a whole new family pisses me off. Would I be the a-hole for ignoring relatives, telling Maya, and causing family drama? Or am I the a-hole for not telling Maya about Keith's pregnant mistress? Maybe they have like an agreement. Maybe she knows. And she's like, that's fine. To me, it's like, why bother? People have tried. It doesn't end well. The relationships get ruined. It's like a risk either way. What are you guys doing in that situation? Next one, again, wants to be left anonymous. This is the story of my weirdest ex. I might send in the others later. I'm apparently attracted to the crazy ones. We met when I was 18. We'll call him Tim. At first, everything seemed fine except for the odd story of his sister. He said she was in a DV relationship and had passed away. Oh, it was odd because I'd already met his parents and nobody ever mentioned it. Then he started telling me that she was a millionaire and he was inheriting everything, including his niece and nephew. I really should have just run at that point. Next, he turned up at my house in a suit, saying he had come straight from the funeral, and I felt bad and I didn't want to break up with him in case his sister really did pass away. Everything settled down for a while until he woke up at 3 a.m. calling me, saying he had been out collecting debts for his Russian uncle. We're English. I'm not sure why just one family member is Russian. What? And And that he had been stabbed 3 times. He then hung up, and me being all sleepy didn't quite put it all together and realize how weird it was. So I was panicking, thinking he had actually been stabbed. 2 days later, he called me to ask if he could come over. He came over and said he was fine and didn't want to talk about it. I never saw any wounds. This is where I finally decided to end it and started contacting some of his friends that I had met. One of them had known him since they were babies. He never had a sister, doesn't have any uncles that are Russian or other ones, and the niece and nephew were fake too. He spent the next year making new Facebook accounts and calling any family member of mine he could find on there, crying and begging them to convince me to take him back. He routinely pops back up every few months, and I now use it as an opportunity to update him on my life with progressively more insane stories before blocking him just for my own entertainment. Man, pathological liars are wild. Wild. You gotta be so bored to like come up with these stories, lies, act it out on the phone. I can't be bothered. Oh, that's too much. I'm too tired to lie, to be honest. Next up is Darlene Kane, psycho landlord story. In 2015, I lived in a shelter with my 2 daughters who still hadn't left the nest like my older 2 had. Many landlords would act like they were happy to rent to me, but when they found out my current address was a shelter, suddenly someone else had spoken for the place before me. So I was ecstatic to find a landlord willing to rent to me after finding out. At first, everything was lovely. It was December, and then moving day came, and we discovered that the landlord's wife had decorated the place for Christmas for us. What a sweet welcome! For the first couple of months, everything was friendly, until the day the lock broke on the door. My girls were coming home from a youth group meeting, and the door wouldn't unlock. I tried doing it from inside, but couldn't, and I couldn't remove it. So I called the landlord so my girls could get in. He came, and it took him half an hour to get the door open, but all while he was accusing me of sabotaging it. I have no idea why he thought that I would do that. The friendliness was gone after that. Then one day, the drainage pipes in the basement backed up and flooded the basement. He blamed me for that too. All in all, it happened 3 times, with me being blamed every time. I asked why on earth I would do that, and he said it was to sabotage him. Then he started to complain about how much laundry I did. It was a shared basement, so he knew every time I put a load in. One day when I went down to switch a load to the dryer, there was a strong smell of urine. I opened the washer to find that he had peed in my laundry. I'm going to jail. Smart move. Protest me doing laundry too much by making me have to do it twice. LOL. Literally. One night I had a mild heart. Oh my God. That's a very casual thing to say. One night I had a mild heart attack. Are you okay? The day the rent was due, and I was in the hospital for several hours, so I couldn't pay the rent until I got out. My heart. He texted me daily to ask for the rent, despite me telling him I was in the hospital. I get that he wanted to get paid, and I know it was late, but give me a break. There was nothing I could do. I finally paid him on the day I was released from the hospital, 4 days late. He was still upset whenever I did laundry, and one day he bleached a load of clothes my youngest had brought with babysitting money and only worn once. What a POS. I replaced them for her, but she was still heartbroken. The month after leaving the shelter, I applied for and was accepted into college to study accounting. I was in class one evening when my phone started vibrating. It was him. I ignored it and texted him when the class was done. He called me and accused me of shutting the circuit breaker to his apartment off. He said he knew I did it because his wife had seen me in the basement that afternoon doing laundry. I said I couldn't have done it because I was in class. He accused me of lying and claimed that the reason I didn't answer when he called was that I knew I was guilty. He said I was lying about being in class when he called. Then the crazy stuff started happening. What? What the hell have I been reading for the last 5 minutes? Crazy stuff. He shut off the hot water one day, then left town for a few days. We called the tribunal emergency number. Ontario, Canada. Hey. Oh my God, where are you? And they gave him 24 hours to turn it back on or face fines. He turned it back on. When I got home one night, I reached into my mailbox to get the mail. I stuck my hand into something that smelled rancid and felt like butter. My daughters and their friends said they thought it might have been rancid mayo going by the color. Then he started doing things like turning the power off in the middle of the night, or the water. He did it many times, but I always went to the basement and turned it back on. Suddenly, things started disappearing from the apartment. Things that weren't likely to have just been misplaced. Things like one slipper from a pair that had been together in a closet. Or when half of my fishing rod disappeared from the closet. Not the whole rod, just one half from the rod that I never took apart. We knew it was him, but it was confirmed one day when my classes had been canceled. So I was home when I normally wouldn't be, and he and his wife entered the apartment. They used the excuse that they had seen something that made them think something was wrong, so they came in. Then one day I was doing laundry, and when I went down to switch the laundry to the dryer, I discovered that he had unplugged the machine, bent the prongs that stuck into the outlet, and removed a piece of the detergent dispenser. I'm exhausted reading this for you. Fortunately, the piece wasn't essential, and I was able to bend the prongs back and plug it back in. From that day on, I just took my books down with me whenever I did laundry and studied down there so he couldn't do anything. He was still turning our power off regularly too. Then one night I went to turn it back on but couldn't open the basement door. I tried knocking on his door, but he had music playing so loud that there was no way he heard my knock. Since it was around 1 a.m., the music was a noise violation, so I called the police. I had them on speed dial at this point in case something dangerous happened. Probably a good idea. They knocked on his door with no answer, but one officer said he saw him through the windows and he was sleeping on the couch. Since no one could sleep with music that loud, he had legal grounds to suspect a medical emergency and break in. The landlord woke up pretty quick when they did that. The officer then went down to the basement through the landlord's apartment to turn the power back on. When he came back up, he told me that the reason I hadn't been able to open the door was that a huge boulder that it took both officers to move had been placed in front of the door. He also started threatening my girls as they came home from school, and they got to a point that they were scared to come home without an escort. So my oldest and her husband started picking them up from school after that, and I had been looking for another apartment for several months, but I decided to move into a motel room until I found a place. I'm with you on that. I'd be doing the same thing. But even where I was moving, he tried to follow me after the big stuff was all in a storage locker, and we just returned for a few small things. We took a taxi to the motel with those things, but when he had tried to follow us, the taxi driver was a real hero. When we were leaving the old apartment with the last of our small stuff that was taken to the motel room and not put in storage, the landlord tried to follow us to see where we were moving to. We all freaked out, and one daughter started having a panic attack. The taxi driver asked if we wanted him to take us to the police station instead of the motel. That was a hard yes. When we arrived at the station, the landlord just kept driving without following us into the station. The taxi driver said my daughters could wait with him while I talked to the police if I wanted. Since no police were at the station at night and I would have to use the direct line and wait for someone to arrive to let me in, I let them do that. The police talked to me inside, then went outside to talk to the people out there. The landlord must have circled around the block or something because the police were able to catch up with him. But his excuse was that he just happened to be going the same direction as us because he was dropping a mattress off at the thrift store a block away. Yeah, right. But that didn't explain why he turned left with us, but the thrift store was straight ahead. Or why he was dropping a mattress off after hours at a store that doesn't accept furniture. Anyway, after the police had talked to them, but I was still inside the station, the driver came in to ask me if I wanted him to take the girls to a motel and come back for me. Since we had already been there for an hour and a half, I was sure the landlord wasn't stupid enough to follow them again, knowing the taxi driver would just return to the police station instead of going to the motel. I said yes. He was back in about 15 minutes and waited another half an hour for me. When he drove me to the motel, he didn't charge me for anything and wouldn't accept a tip. You bet I left a fantastic review with his employer, Niagara Falls Taxi, the next day. That is so Canadian. This just makes me so happy that this isn't Ontario, Canada. There's still good people out there. I love that. Next up, we have Ruby. Please watch. My mom is describing her first date with my bio dad. We thought it would fit. Oh my God, I have a video? Oh, this is so exciting. Before I click play, let's take a quick sip of water because we all need to hydrate today, okay? Cheers. I hope you're having a good day.
When I was 15, I used to go roller skating every week, and I met my daughter's father at the very end of May, and I had to leave for a training camp for becoming a summer missionary for Children's Evangelism Fellowship in June. Well, like the day before I'm supposed to get ready to leave, like 3 days before that, I get a call from Don, and all I can hear is wailing. Just wailing and wailing and wailing. And I have no idea what's going on. He makes no sense. And suddenly, his brother, I think, took the phone and explained to me what had happened. Her father was the youngest of 10 children.
Oh, 10?
And one of them, Pat, had passed away.
No.
That week. And so he was pretty broken up. So my first date with my daughter's father was his brother's funeral.
Oh my God. Can honestly say I've never read a story on this channel of someone's first date being at a funeral.
And then it was like some kind of it's like living a glitch in the Matrix. Everybody looked alike.
Why?
And I don't mean one of those families where people kind of look like each other. I mean a family where everybody looks alike. Like, scary alike. Like taller, shorter, skinnier, fatter versions of themselves. It was like walking past a set of clown mirrors. One of his brothers was shorter than him, and then another one of his brothers was like almost like a full foot taller than him. He was like 6'6". And then we had, brothers of all shapes and sizes in between, but they all had the same cheekbones, the same nose, and the hair of varying versions of the same. Taller, shorter, skinnier, fatter versions of him. So the whole thing was really weird.
That would be the most uncomfortable date ever. Your first date and you're there to support him. Like, hey, stranger, here to support you. Uncomfortable. Thank you so much for sending this in. That was so fun. The form to submit your story will be back up soon as I keep going through. I just have over 200 submissions that I really want to get to all of them if I can. So stay tuned for it to be back open. Stay classy out there. Stay happy. I'll see you tomorrow.